This is Pioneer Public, a segment where we introduce the most interesting people on campus to their community. The Globe's Carly Bonk has this profile.
Hey Point Park, I'm Carly Bonk, co-features editor for The Globe, and welcome to our weekly Pioneer Public segment. I'm joined in studio today with Professor Ben Schonberger. Thank you for joining us today.
It's great to be here.
Good. So tell us a little bit about your job as a photography professor here at Point Park. How many years have you been here with us?
So this is my second year at Point Park, and I teach in the School of Communication, and within the School of Communication, I mainly focus in the BFA program. So I teach a wide range of photography courses, from intro classes to advanced level conceptual classes, and all the classes deal with tools, processes, theory, and production.
Okay. And what class sticks out to you the most as one of your favorites, and why?
Oh gosh. Well, my favorite class is self-publishing, and for so many reasons. The class surveys a magnitude of print-on-demand formats and platforms, and we survey the DIY, do-it-yourself, self-publishing movement that is really happening right now and very popular for photographers. It's kind of this rite of passage, like as a photographer, to make your own book. Mm-hmm. But not everybody has the ability to work hand in hand with a publisher. So this class teaches you how to do everything yourself, from learning the design programs to editing strategies to selecting like a printer and like the right paper. And then we go through a series of editing exercises. And at the end of the class, everybody has what would be considered to be their first book or their first book dummy, which is a mock-up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it moves quickly, but it's so much fun.
And you're a published author yourself, correct?
I've self-published 3 works.
Okay. One
work, notably a project called Beautiful Pig, which is a book that tracks my interactions with a retired Detroit police officer for several years. I took his collection, augmented it, gave it the parameters of an archive, and used the archive as a mapping system for me and this officer to look at Detroit. And I self-published the book, and it was fortunate to be acknowledged in several exhibitions and competitions around the globe.
And speaking of those expeditions, you actually just got back from Amsterdam, correct?
That is correct. I was in Amsterdam last week for 5 days. My work, Beautiful Pig, that project was formatted for an exhibition in a museum called Foam, which is in Amsterdam. It's considered to be like the upper echelon of photography in Europe. And every year they select 20 emerging photographers from around the world. They selected 3 Americans this year, and they published the work in Foam magazine called Talent, and there's an exhibition right now currently up at the museum. And after that show, it will travel around Europe, and it should be coming to Brooklyn in the spring.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's very cool.
So I'm sure you've met a lot of interesting photographers traveling. What are some other exhibitions that you've been a part of, and what are some other photographers that have stood out to you? Or just artists in general?
Artists in general. I mean, so many artists. Like, you meet so many fascinating people as a photographer. I actually just hung a show yesterday with my colleague April Fridges at Unsmoked Systems Art Space in Braddock, PA, which is not too far from here. Mm-hmm. And that show is called Inaccuracy, and it's about how photographers deal with this idea of being accurate, either through a process of making and building or a process of layering and referencing. So that was a really fun project for us, and we each went back and forth about how we wanted to deal with this exhibition, and we each invited a photographer to come be a part of the show. I invited this photographer named Krista Wartendijk, and April invited Samara Yemen, and we're hosting both of those artists here on campus in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
So I mean, maybe it's because I've been looking at their work a lot. I've been really responding to it. Mm-hmm. But my gosh, there's just so many amazing photographers out there. I mean, I could name a few that I'm just really into right now, like Asker Carlson, Liz Cohen, Brittany Nelson. So many amazing people out there working.
And what are some aspects of their work that inspires you in your own?
You know, it's funny, like for the last 5 years, I've been really inspired by this idea of like questioning and challenging notions of authorship and identity. But lately, I've been really responding to a lot of formalism and a lot of problem solving through form. So I've actually been looking at a lot of design, a lot of three-dimensional design, a lot of mid-century modern design, and just really thinking about what it meant to simplify and really like rely on form to just exist as a means to really understand and call attention to space.
Okay.
If that makes sense. If that
Yeah, definitely.
that answers the
I
question.
understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
So sometimes photographers can have a problem with forgetting that the lens is there between their subjects.
Yeah.
How would you advise a young photographer to connect with their subjects?
Put the camera on a tripod immediately. Like remove the camera from your body and just really consider space. And you know, when you begin, if you're working with a new subject, try and get to know the subject before you even make the photograph. I tell people sometimes that, you know, maybe you don't even put a roll of film in and you just pretend to shoot some exposures with nothing, and then you put the film in. As soon as you can really allow the camera to fall in the background, then you're able to kind of go in and really, you know, make that connection. The camera is really scary. It's a really dangerous, critical tool. And when people are aware of it, they kind of change sometimes, or they at least become aware of themselves, kind of like this, which is really, you know, you really have to remind yourself what you're doing at that moment. So whatever you can do in every situation is different, but whatever you can do to really make the camera feel like it's a transparent thing, then you're really going to be able to get, you know, whatever it is you need.
Yeah.
From that experience, at least.
And as a photographer, what would you identify as your defining moment that was like, aha, this is what I want to do?
When I knew I wanted to be a photographer?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, I like to do so many things, right? And I think what's really interesting about photography is it can be applied to so many things in your life. Like photography is a way for me to ask questions, take risks, and challenge my belief systems and hopefully other people's belief systems. So when I realized that I could use photography as a tool to understand, or a tool to always be in this idea of like searching or approaching, I realized that you're not using photography in its most literal form to just represent something or show an account. You're using it as a means to provocate. So when I learned I could do that, that was really sort of the inspiring thing. When I went to college, I knew I either wanted to be an artist or a teacher. I didn't know you could be a professor, or there was even this other thing you could do and kind of balance both. So I found a really great college in West Virginia that had an excellent art program and an excellent teaching program. So I figured, well, if one doesn't work, maybe the other one will. And I was like the only kid that didn't change their major. I was like, I'm gonna just be a photographer and do it, you know? This whole art world was not something I was even aware of at the time.
Yeah.
You know, it's a balance.
It really is.
I tell my students, I tell everybody, you have to be a good juggler. You have to be able to handle like 4 or 5 things at once, and that's the hardest balance. You can be a great photographer, but a terrible accountant, or a great photographer and bad at writing or numbers. It's like you have to be able to do so many different things at once, and that's what I kind of try and push people. I'm like, okay, well, now what? What are you gonna do? What else are you gonna do?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, you really seem to push yourself to the limits, and
yeah.
I really am inspired by some of the work that I've seen, even just through your foam exhibition. So thank you so much for joining us today.
It was great to be here.
It was great to meet you. Thank you so much.
Of course.
For more Pioneer Public profiles, check us out on our website at ppuglobe.com. Thank you.
Connect with the Globe on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at PPU Globe, and always online at ppuglobe.com.